lane to deal with what's already on the table.
Yeah, FoFo having a 75% win rate on it in 4 games. Wuming has only played it once this split, but we know he was playing it quite a bit in 2020 itself. But they do go back towards that S-tier support, and Leyan just going to stay on comfort. It's funny because Leyan has always been this jungler that he will just keep going back to these picks that he's been famous on, right? Nidalee was the first one, comes in, fills in on IG, looks amazing on this Nidalee. We get into this split where it's all about the Udyr. He keeps jumping on that one, and with that one banned away by themselves, he is going to go with the Nidalee, and it sets up for the Zoe that you highlighted for FoFo, which sets up a really good poke or siege composition coming out. A lot of early game skirmishing available as well.
Perfect word for it. I like that lyric. The poke set up here for RA. I also love that you're mentioning Leyan. I remember him on IG. It was just Sejuani to set up for people like Rookie and the Shy. So, yeah, he definitely fits into that category. And as we see FoFo on one of his best champions, I'm really excited for this RA comp and how they set up more of the poke capabilities. I'll transition over, though, because seeing the Tristana before we get an AD carry of RA, you've also got the Galio to set up the all-in.
And now I wonder what RA will go with in the bottom, because you can go something very aggressive into the likes of a Tristana. We saw TT pulling out the Lucian against it. You can go for a more lane prio, and I'd say siege-oriented AD carry that fits their composition much better, something like the Jhin. He would be susceptible to the level 2 and level 3 all-in coming from the Tristana, but you're much more just about farming and clearing waves, setting up skirmishes with your ultimate later on. So I still think RA have options, but OMG are indexing, hey, we're setting up for a hyper carry in the bot lane, we're getting Wuming onto his most played champion in the Galio, and we are going to be comfortable.
This is the Wuming from Rogue Warriors, right? He played a lot of these global mid laners that could affect the side lanes. So I do like that Wuming's returning to some of his roots. You mentioned one of his most played champions there as well. Now for RA, how do they deal with this? Because the Camille ban already shows some of the compositions that line up nicely, or rather some of the picks that line up nicely for OMG here.
I'd also like to see them take away another source of engage. You might think OMG need more damage in the top lane, but even something like the Sion and prevent OMG from being able to get on top of RA, because they're showing they want to keep OMG at arm's length. They have 3 really good tools of doing that right now with Rell, Galio, and then Tristana being able to follow up with her rocket jump as well. So you have the Camille away, the Camille Galio combos off the table. Sion is the other big thing that jumps to my mind, and like, hey, this will be able to give you that engage no matter what, and let's take it away. But instead, they just ban out the Olaf.
Something that can just run straight in and also set up for the Galio. So I respect that from RA, but at the very least, let's see what OMG ban here, because their target has been towards the AD carry pool, which has really been slimmed out. Vayne even goes through. Might indicate that Sion you talked about with the front line being shredded by the true damage.
And the thing for RA right now is the Jhin is still up, like I mentioned before. You even could go towards the Felix if you wanted that, but ooh, I actually forgot about that champion. Ezreal is available, and we've been seeing Ezreal make his way onto this patch. He fits the theme of their composition extremely well, and even with that build, he is a bit more of an early game threat.
Leaves it till last, right? The Gnar pick here and said, just in case OMG wanted more of that wombo in the front line.
And it makes sense because this pick will also do pretty well against a Sion in lane. So I think by taking this on 4, you're trying to dissuade OMG a little bit from doing that, saying, hey, we're going to blind pick our top laner. You get to counter if you so choose to have it, whether it's something like a GP or even if you wanted to really go down the trenches and bring out a Kennen, which I don't think would be that good. But going more holistically with the composition and sticking with the Sion that we set up for earlier.
And putting a Kayn in the mix as well. I'll pause on that because I want you to talk to me how this integrates into the Hypercarry Tristana setup. On the other side, let's just finish off RA because you were already mentioning that the Ezreal here would fit in really nicely. Adds to the poke, and we've got that miniature Team Rocket, you know, without the Persian slash Meowth in the Yuumi there, as we'd always see. So iBoy goes back onto the Ezreal, and a lot of poke setup now for RA indefinitely.
And now the big thing with this that jumps up to me first is the fact that RA really want to be able to get ahead and then stay ahead. If you are playing a poker siege composition from behind, it can be quite hard. If the enemy team is on objectives, sure, you're able to throw out poke because they are concentrated into a small zone, but it makes it very easy for them to turn on you when they have the Rell Sion combo, Galio easily able to follow in.
Yep.
So for RA, I want to see them getting a bit of an advantage through this mid jungle. They even should have prio in the top side, so get off to a good foot. For OMG, it's the complete opposite side of the map, right? You're playing around your bot lane. You have the all-in ability coming out from your Tristana. You have the Galio, who's going to be able to follow up at the level 6 mark, and then we're going to be waiting on that Kayn to hit his blue form before he really starts popping off.
Looking for that early evolve as usual as well. See if the dynamic can change here because, you know, jungle priority in game number 1, Leyan definitely took the cake, and I think it's going to be a pretty hard task here for Aki, who's been under a lot of scrutiny here in the LPL as not really a great performing jungler, but in a team that overall isn't great performing anyway. It's an interesting cop because we changed dynamics completely going into the second game, and, you know, Lyric, I just love seeing that they're going to put a lot of their eggs into the basket of Eric, because Eric and Cold have been the best performing lane. I think Eric and Cold have been the ones that we said, if any lane can really take over, it has been these two in the bottom lane.
And it just makes sense, too, with the way the meta has shaped up, right? Where we do have so many, I'd say, hyper carries in the mix. Again, we've already had a Jinx game on this patch, but I do expect to even see a little bit more Jinx when we do go on to 11.4 with that small HP buff coming back to her. So I think Eric is in a prime position to... He's playing the role in the meta where if he can carry, he needs to be the one to step up.
And as he swaps sides, it will be about that bottom lane for OMG that we'll talk about a little bit further. I also want to point out that as we come back into this one, it is not a grasp on the Gnar. We've actually got a fleet footwork on Cube versus New, who's going for the glacial augment. So kind of fun to watch the small little interactions that changes with the rune choice.
I'm also surprised at that one because we've actually seen a lot of Sions opt away from it. It makes sense in a range versus melee matchup because you won't be able to proc grasp really at all in this. Going with the Glacial Augment is a lot more about the gank setup as well. If you can get on top of the Gnar when Aki's coming, very good to find that 2v1 kill. But an adaptation we've seen to Sion is the fact that you can take Grasp and just go with the Frostfire Gauntlet first, and then you still get the slows coming out from your auto attack. So it's like you're getting the best of both worlds.
Plus you stack, you know, the HP given from Grasp, you know, the permanent stack, plus the W permanent stack as well. I also want to point out that I really like the fact that teams are pulling up Gnar into this matchup because remember that Hyper is a HP percentage shredder, that you get that 6% max HP damage, and Sion, of course, inherently stacks health as well. So it does feel like in the lane, in range Gnar, you're always going to feel pretty good with the trades, even within the early game.
Of course, right? Just range versus melee matchup. He is always at threat of being taken down, getting hit by the Sion Q, but that doesn't really matter. You don't care too much about any all-ins coming until level 6, and even then, it's still much more about setting up a gank from Aki rather than expecting a Sion to just solo kill Cube's Gnar.
Yeah, I think, you know, if that happens, I'd be very surprised. I was seeing lanes just be set out here. FoFo against Wuming. FoFo on his signature pick of Zoe. Said that about a lot of LPL laners here. He'll also have tracking of Aki thanks to his ward we saw put on the red buff. So FoFo has a really good idea of where the Kayn is to start off. And tracking a Kayn in the early game always feels good considering that you can delay the invade, play around where Kayn's going to be, and know that in the early game he's not really a menace in the first part of the skirmish.
I mean, I'm wondering if we even see them look for a skirmish topside after Leyan takes his red buff and Krugs, because, like you said, they know exactly where he is. Zoe has push in the mid lane. Cube is winning out in the top side of the map right now in terms of both HP and mana, so this should be a pretty easy top scuttle for the side of RA.
Well, Aki's just farming up the top side for now. And at the very least, the blue buff will be taken down. Again, they know he's up here. Both junglers are actually up towards the top side as well, and for now, we'll just continue watching these jungles play it out. Remember in the early game, it was the 2v2 down in the bottom lane that really ruined OMG. Different dynamic here as Leyan actually spotted out crossing the ward, I believe, but he'll be starting the scuttle anyway, and Aki just doesn't want to be nearby to contest this. As I don't know if Lyric's lagging or not, or if it's me. We never know. The internet sometimes plays tricks. You know, without the internet, we'd be casting through a book for you. At the very least, I'll wait until he comes back online.
Hysterics, but I can hear you again. Life is good. Life is good, my friend.
Welcome back. You know what I said? Absolutely nothing. There's a 2v2 that didn't happen in the mid lane, and now Aki's just going to trade Scuttle Crab.
And again, we expected a bit of a slower paced game early on, right? We know Wuming's going to be absorbing pressure in the mid lane. it's going to be quite hard for Eric and Cold to find the 2v2 that we wanted them to, because, right, if we know that we should expect it, of course, iBoy and Hung know, hey, we're playing on an island, we're just sitting back, we're just farming. It's a lot more about getting to those first break points for the side of RA, though I would like to see them at some point transition towards the mid lane and start doing what they did last time. Get Hung out of lane on a reset, look mid, bring over Leyan, pop the Sleepy Trouble Bubble or the Headbutt Pulverized combo, and start getting your pressure from the mid lane and letting FoFo take over the game.
Remember, the MR shield ain't what it used to be here on the Galio for the W's, so there's still a lot of bullying coming out of FoFo, still a lot of magic damage that is absorbed into Wuming's health bar, so you'd see the poke come out, the absolute burst for the ages, as FoFo's actually already leading this lane by 10 CS, has one more tick of the Corrupting Potion as well, while Wuming out of pots, doesn't have to stopwatch until about 12 minutes in, and will continue to be getting pressured out as Leyan actually spotted out an award, so even more so, Wuming playing so far back in this lane.
Oh, and I really like this from Leyan, going aggressively into Aki's jungle, throws up the spear, misses.
Yeah, and that's actually really good. Aki's going to get some stacks here onto the orbs. He'll get the first spin onto Leyan. Spear connects onto New, but is Leyan going to try and turn it around? Blast Cone there to follow through. Spear misses again onto Aki. That's a really good trade for OMG.
Oh, Aki is being forced off his Gromp. I don't expect Leyan to be able to do much more. You look at his mana pool, it is extremely low right now. FoFo did switch to TP though, so if anything breaks out, FoFo can be here.
Okay, teleport to come out immediately here. This is Wuming coming from base. He has level 5, not 6. Just making sure that Leyan doesn't go any further forward, and he'll walk back to the mid lane. So teleport to mitigate some of the pressure being exerted.
And that's a win for the side of RA, right? It doesn't seem like Wuming's actually going to lose out anything in the mid lane, so not as big of a win as you would hope, but did miss out at least on the 3 melee minions. And it's going to be a window of tempo for FoFo, who now has push in the mid lane. We do have Dragon up now, so maybe starting to get some vision on the bottom side of the map. And again, going for those roam plays that we've talked about earlier. But with Scuttle Crab spawning on top side, I doubt that Leyan looks to make that transition now.
Nah, he's just going to be sitting at Scuttle Crab for now. I do like, however, that, you know, when we see this Zoe-Galio matchup, a lot of the time we see lane priority given over to the Zoe, and she makes the first roam, she keeps the Galio in lane, and a Galio that's stuck in lane can't really utilize the ultimate and get some of the plays on the map. So I will be curious as to watch how Wuming actually exerts the Galio pressure and how he can go towards that bottom lane. You mentioned this, Leon's going to miss the spear, and he just walks by to clear towards the bottom side.
All of his camps are up. Just going to hover around there. It's going to relieve a bit of pressure from RA's bot lane because OMG now know that Nidalee is bot because she showed on mid-wave. And you're getting exactly what you want. Your Ezreal is getting a bit of time to scale up. You're waiting for that mid-game point where you will be strongest, and it's still just about looking for those opportunities with the prio your Zoe provides. But Aki is looking for something a little cheeky.
I don't think he's spotted out, but FoFo's playing towards top side. Shield of Durant is going to be cleansed away immediately. Good dodge from Aki. Gives him no orbs. Trouble bubbles there. Aki ready to go forward once again. FoFo just auto-attacks him for a bit of quarter of a trade. And as they walk away, this is so annoying to deal with. FoFo's still in a great position.
And that was a really nice sidestep coming out from FoFo, like you highlighted. With the fact that Eric and Cold are still around in the bot lane, RA will be getting off their resets first. I expect Eric and Colt to try to match resets. And then I just want to see OMG be the ones to turn towards Dragon, right? RA haven't been able to find any windows in mid lane like we've hoped. So you're still the team that has prio around that Drake. Get on top of that first. We highlighted how it is a bit harder for RA to navigate those situations when they aren't the team with the setup. And at least then OMG can start playing around snowballing these Drakes.
First Dragon being Cloud as well. Get that ult CDR nice and early would be really good for the Galio. Especially since Leyan now up towards the top side with Herald spawning. But I want to note that Hung has started to roam Cold as well. This is what was talked about in the interview with FoFo before. These supports like to group up, but meanwhile on the top side, something of a different perspective as Cube's about to go into the Mega Gnar. They're backing away as Leyan's coming up as well. Cold is squishy as hell. He's going to get tagged with a spear. Once again, followed up with the pounce. Flashes away, but Leyan connects onto New, takes one turret shot. The decimating smash here. An auto attack to seal the deal, but Cube has already killed down Aki. A 2-for-1 trade, and RA come out ahead.
Really nice play coming out from RA, right? We see OMG. They don't know that Leyan's there, though I think they should. Yep, Hung just giving a nice hello over to Wuming. RA being much stronger in the top side 2v2 right now. It wasn't even exactly a 2v2 because we saw Cube just kiting out Nu before the exchange even started. Nu was chunked to about half HP. Leyan shows up, lands a spear, really beautiful flash, and then a great 2-for-1. And now it isolates Wuming back into this mid lane 1v1 where FoFo is having a field day.
Oh, God. Wuming couldn't join the fight the top side either, right? Because he's pushed against the turret. He's going to miss so much if he commits and nothing goes right. So, once again, RA coming out ahead. 1,000 gold lead here in the early game as Cole's making his roam around, but Leyan is unable to connect a spear and just backs away. And as after all's said and done, the only thing that OMG were able to get better was the turret plating in the bottom lane from Eric after the push.
And now we're just going to be looking once again towards that dragon. It seems like we've had a bit of a split map scenario in a sense in RA's eyes where we haven't seen Leyan put any focus towards the bottom lane, which is about what we would expect if they aren't able to get FoFo out of that lane, if they aren't able to burn the heroic charge coming out of the Galio. And he's just been completely playing around the top side of the map. So you'd expect Herald should be free for RA, and I really think OMG should look to cross map.
Well, they're going back to the top side for now. Nu's getting low. He has the ultimate on a cooldown as well. Cube not going to transform. Aki getting some orbs, but Leyan to the rescue. Moving back towards his Sion top lane. He'll go into the zombie form, but it depends. Is Cube going to survive on one tick of health? And Nu picks up the kill in his dead form while Leyan trying to run away. W doesn't connect from Aki, but he does pick up some ranged soul orbs from that, so closer towards blue Kayn. Still trading off a kill in the end, 1-for-1 in the top lane.
Also, Cold is now topside because he thought he'd be needed for that play. They knew Leyan was there. They know Leyan is heavily invested around the top half of the map. So Eric is actually being denied CS. I really like the way that Hung and iBoy are playing this. They're consistently threatening, but look at the minimap. Wuming is hovering with this ultimate if RA get a bit too feisty.
Ready to go to that bottom lane, exactly. I like that you point that out. Really a big interaction that could change the face of this bottom lane push. Eric pays respect though, and nevertheless, Wuming was not able to execute the ultimate, so iBoy and Hung will still continue safely, seeing the Galio back in lane. At the very least, OMG starting off this Herald on the top side after making a play that was able to shove out.
That's the thing is, OMG just sacrificed Eric's situation and push in the bottom lane to be able to take this Herald in the top side of the map. So Ari are going to give this one up. They do have pings coming out towards the dragon right now. We do see another reset come out. But Essence Reaver for iBoy.
Blocks the Justice Punch. I'm not sure if that was the right idea by Leyan because it sets up the attractive repel. Only sad thing is Cold got the shutdown.
I mean, we saw that a lot in game one, right? The supports picking up the kills for their team, so nothing too surprising coming into this game. And the great thing for that for the side of OMG is it stops RA from going towards that dragon like they had pinged out.
Does mean that you've got the Herald in the back pocket of Aki as well, so you might be able to utilize that better than you would have expected if Leyan didn't die. I want you to walk me through where that Herald is going to be used and why it should be used moments before the dragon gets looked at.
I think this is one of the scenarios where the stock and standard LPL rotate 4 to 5 members mid play really works out. We see how much Wuming is being punished in the mid lane, and that OMG have had consistent prio on the bot side. So move your bot lane over, bring them with Aki towards the mid lane, try to get some chunk damage on that tower. You're not going to be able to take it, but as of right now at the map state, Herald wouldn't take turret outright on any side of the map unless you do look bot lane and catch Leyan out with some vision topside. So I think just look mid. We've seen many times most LPL teams play for the double Herald turret take rather than just being like, hey, let's look for a turret we can get with just one Herald.
But I guess for now, with Aki in the top side, he's going to maybe commit to the top lane. Cube is actually hopped over, so he's either die or mega at this point. Out comes Aki, but he's dead before he evolves, and that's a good pick here. They're going to get the Herald up in the top side if he chooses to put it down. Nu pushing as well, and I guess the answer is yes after recalling the recall.
And the thing is, OMG aren't funneling gold onto either of their carries, right? Kayn is not the one getting these kills. They have given Tristana nothing this game. Everything is going on to Nu, so it's going to be all about how Nu is able to absorb this poke later in the game. So I feel like for the mid portions of the game, having your tank ahead will feel quite nice against what RA has. The problem is going to be the later we go, right? Where you aren't funneling the gold onto your strong carries.
It's also like if you can use Zoe and Ezreal to get past Nu as well. Eric and Wuming, or sorry, just rather Eric, is going to be more vulnerable than you'd expect, less damage than you'd expect as well. So an interesting point to consider as Herald gets through, gets a second charge, but it is first turret blood. Going over to OMG, meaning they have a gold lead for the first time in this game.
The thing, though, this does open is now OMG have top lane turret down. They could just have new mindlessly hit the wave, and then once his ult comes up, OMG can be the team that start looking for plays around mid with that Sion ultimate.
There's iBoy. Okay, over the wall. Arcane Shift is good, doing a bit of damage onto Cole. I want to see if that Sion ultimate, as you mentioned, can be used to pick up someone like FoFo.
Yep.
Very easy to predict with the portal jump.
Thinking about it, with the way this game is gone, I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're just going to see him use the ult onto Gnar. Aki's going to show top once again, and they're just going to keep abusing Cube.
To be fair, New was bullied at like the high hell towards the mid game of last game as well, so I feel like this was a big time to, you know, kind of send the revenge back. Or rather, excuse me, it was Wuming. I was actually thinking of the first series earlier on where top laners were beaten to a pulp, so maybe OMG was sitting on the sidelines thinking the same thing after experiencing what we saw from the first series with Penguin and Dagda. I want to take note of the items though while RA are pushing in the bottom lane once again, because we are towards our first mythics for some pretty core people. Of course, not mythic, but Essence Reaver for iBoy, which has been the standard build, so he's a bit ahead of Eric in his pushing game.
Of course, he's been able to deal a lot of... Even his ultimate we saw in the last, like, minute was able to do about 25% of Eric's damage at this point in the game. Again, he's only sitting on one item. He's only an Ezreal, so I'd say he's progressing pretty solidly through the game. The thing I want to see now is... I want to see RA do anything, because we haven't seen RA playing that proactively. They did go for that top gank earlier on, which was actually a counter gank and only turned into a gank because of how well Q played it. We haven't seen them look mid, though they are trying now.
Oh no, Spear doesn't connect though. Is the burst enough? Flashes away. Leyan waiting for the follow-up. The Ignite comes down and Wuming manages to survive. Leyan not hitting his spears this game. Unfortunate turn events that'll send Wuming back.
And that's why you always see Nidalee picked with setup, right? Because it's not just as easy saying, you know, Nidalee throw the spear and hit it. Obviously, players are actively trying to dodge it. The hitbox is not big, many factors. But for RA, their setup is kind of conditional. It's Sleepy Trouble Bubble coming out from Zoe, Cube when he's in Mega Gnar for an ult or W someone. Your only point-and-click CC is the Headbutt Pulverize coming out from Hung. And with their Ezreal pick, we knew that Leyan wouldn't be playing around bot lane early.
Because we know that if it's something like a Syndra, right, Scatter the Weak is imminent. You see it happen. You can't really buffer it here as a Galio, but Sleepy Trouble Bubble, you can use the Justice Punch and then kind of reposition yourself. And that's what we've seen a couple of times out of this mid lane interaction with Leyan, trying to throw the Javelin Toss down. So feels unfortunate, and it's been a pretty rough early game for Leyan, just trading off kills for his life. He's 2-2 at the moment. He has Night Harvester, but still struggles to add more impact. This now Horizon focused FoFo. That's actually an interesting first item. I don't think we've seen this many times.
No, you're right. We don't usually see this. It's typically just about bringing out that mythic item first. And I still think in this scenario it would be better. It just shows how much they're indexing into keeping OMG at arm's length. But in terms of just straight up DPS, I do not think it does more than had he just gone straight for that Ludens.
Yeah, still sitting on the Lost Chapter as we expect as like the first kind of conditional, or rather partial item. So 1.5 here with the stopwatch in hand for FoFo.
The one thing I'll give it is it does have more flat AP, right? But if like the consistent damage you'd be getting out of the procs of your Ludens, I feel like would quickly even out and then surpass that damage number. Plus sorry to cut you off, Hysterics.
No, you're right. I was also just thinking, plus you get more wave clear as well with the AoE splash that's on a relatively low cooldown. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of math to be done, but I completely agree with you. At this point, we'll see, because if he gets that second item relatively soon, that'll still be a 2 big item burst. Meanwhile, though, Dragon has spawned, and as Herald goes down, OMG trying to force the engage. Both are going to get ulted on. The Steam train actually goes down. New misses. But he's so tanky, he's not really taking any damage.
Yeah, and he tried to flash and then, explode his W shield. It looked like even that interaction itself missed.
Yeah.
But Cold gets chunked out so low, they do back off, and now this is the prime position RA want to be in. OMG's far away from them, throwing out Sleepy Trouble Bubbles and Spears, but nothing is connecting for any member of RA.
No, it's a poke comp that you want to see. These skill shots connect. FoFo especially here into the back of the pit, finally onto Aki at half health. New getting tanked down as well. iBoy's actually hitting the most out of anyone. The spear's a Yankos level from Leyan, while it is actually Hung who goes down first by Eric. RA in a weird position as they need to kill the front line in New. The Dragon will go down in the meanwhile as Cube and Leyan onto the back line. Engaged by Arky. It's a great flash from Cube. RA getting something out of this. Wuming finally ults on in, but iBoy ready to follow this one up. Troll Wobble connects from downtown. OMG lose the core brunt to their members as Leyan trying to follow up for more.
And that was just such a disjointed engage coming out from the side of OMG. They did already use some of their tools, right? Pretty much all of New's critical cooldowns were down, but still we saw different members funneling in different directions, which just allowed members of RA to pretty much kite out in 1v1 or 2v1 situations.
It feels like at the end of the day that, you know, will actually be really good for RA despite not getting the Dragon. I'll say that though because iBoy is getting TP'd on. New's in here. That's a pretty beefy boy. Arcane shift over the wall, decimating smash, but who's gonna get here? No one, and the teleport just means he's now stuck in the bottom lane.
Exactly, so nothing really panning out. RA are still the team with a gold lead sitting at about 3K right now, just a bit shy of 3K actually, so not too big of a deal. Baron coming up in 10 seconds. We're gonna start seeing both teams change their vision to topside. Looks like Ari already has, but we're going to see in this replay, New is already low. He doesn't have his ultimate anymore. They do engage onto the likes of Hung right away, but we're going to see members go into different aspects. Really nice sleepy trouble bubble onto Cold. New also just getting chunked out even before the fight. And then for some reason, we see Aki go in 1v2, gets kited out, dies immediately, and then this leaves iBoy to just play Ezreal, E forward, pick up a lot of these kills because, again, for the side of OMG, you need to coordinate this engage. You need to use these engage tools in unison, kind of get this nice wombo combo sort of feel coming out with your Galio, Sion, and Rell. When you're just tunneling in one by one, certain members are already chunked, it's not really a team fight.
Yeah, for OMG, I mean, everything comes together nicely when the execution's there, but unfortunately it hasn't been. As Cube and New are just bullying each other, but Cube actually the 2 level advantages. New's ultimates have not been good. He gets interrupted. Cube has burnt nothing. He just walks away. And once again, New trying to get something when there wasn't really anything to take.
Hysterics, whose ultimate was it the other day that reminded us of Sion, the Sion Speedway?
It was the escape from bottom to top, but I can't remember the name.
I can't remember who it was either,
LPL
but
games.
Wuming.
I think he could be dead. Does that spear connect? I'm not even sure. It was pretty much point blank. Leyan doesn't get the kill, but New meanwhile gets the turret trade in the bottom side. That's because they're expecting everyone to shove through the top lane. So that's something for New at the very least.
We saw early on where RA were the team just consistently playing around their top lane prio, and OMG were just matching them pound for pound, and then went even further with it. And then RA randomly after that decided, hey, we're going to start and keep split mapping. And we've pretty much been in that split map for the rest of the game, where RA will see where OMG goes and just take plays on the opposite side. They'll get their vision down and allow them to play around their poke and their cooldowns.
Man, I can't help but notice that every time we look at Leyan, you know, while we're looking at those split maps, Leyan does not hit a target with those spears. Like, every single time the camera pans over to him. Because I remember in LEC, I think it was last week, there was a Yankos spear counter. And if we did one from Leyan, I think it would just embarrass the hell out of him because this game has been pretty rough on him. At least he's hitting them onto the camps. That's all you can ask at this point. So that's kind of taking my attention right now, Lyric, because iBoy actually arcade shifts forward. Buster shot used, and there you go. There's Tristana, 1 item damage with the Zeal in hand. And still, there's a lot of threat from Eric if the comp comes together from OMG like we talked about. He's got the front line set up in front of him, and he still does quite a bit of damage, being his hyper carry to be.
The thing is, iBoy is already healed back up. He also has the Dustblade, so he has a pretty strong mid-game power spike with that item. With the next Dragon coming up in 40 seconds, it's going to all be about execution, right? If OMG can layer their wombo correctly and get on top of FoFo / iBoy, I do think iBoy is probably the more critical member for the side of RA because of his ability to reposition with that E. Then OMG will be in a good spot. But if RA can get on the objective first, they don't have really any vision down on the bottom side of the map, and just throw out their poke, you're going to see Hung serve as that kind of meat shield to keep OMG away. Then I think RA are just going to keep running away with this game.
I wanted to ask you before we get to this dragon and the potential fight, you know, seeing the Duskblade, the actual mythic for iBoy on Ezreal, something that we haven't actually seen in the past couple of games, and more importantly, against this comp that has a heavy front line, we're going to have to watch and see if it can actually burst through New. As maybe I don't have time to ask you, Lyric, because New has gone in. Once again, the ultimate doesn't really connect, but it sets up for Wuming for the entrance of a hero into the backline. It's Leyan in the pit who goes gold. Meanwhile, the snipe assassination onto iBoy. Aki's done his job, but he gets interrupted. FoFo on the kill. And meanwhile, OMG sent back into the pit. This is not too good. The blast cone discontinues the paradise that was there. Leyan being an absolute pain. Zombie Sion goes down. A jungler in front of the dragon means secured smite. And OMG making chaos look pretty ugly.
Hysterics. Sion's ultimate completely flops. Wuming following in. Gets the heroic entrance. Also knocks nobody up. So the whole combo we're talking about, again, the engage that needs to come out from OMG, the coordination that needs to be there, it just isn't being executed. We're seeing them run in one by one. I would say it was pretty nice positioning. I think it was from Cube, who was playing on the side of the river. We're actually going to see here. It's actually FoFo playing over this choke point. You're actually not allowing Cold, Eric to be able to walk forward and play with their team. So to where, sure, your other members are able to just cut through and cut past the front line, you're not really setting up for your Tristana to do damage. We also highlighted earlier how Kayn wasn't the member picking up any of these kills in the early game. So all of your gold is onto your meaty front line, but they're just being left by themselves because the other members can't follow up.
The Leyan bait on the blast code to put you back into the pit was just great. And then it was followed up by the spear that really mattered in the situation from Leyan connecting. So well done to him after I've been quite critical in the game. And, you know, Lyric, after that as well, it feels like things are going bad. iBoy targeted again by Aki. The assassin blue Kayn doing its job. Slows down onto Leyan and FoFo, and this is his grand escape. Leyan can pounce here, but the TP matching doesn't really matter to Leyan. Over the wall, FoFo misses as well, but Leyan has some kind of similar burst. Hung getting shielded Duranded here. They bring into Eric, and this Alistar now needs to flash over the wall as Cold gets the Magnet Storm. Hung follows up as well, rather Eric, and OMG pounce when it really counts.
And Cube's TP was just too late and the ward was too far. Not able to do anything. Really nice pick coming out from OMG. They're just going to turn directly towards this Baron. Guess what? It doesn't matter if Aki's not alive because Wuming has a smite for himself. The question is, can Cube prevent this by himself? Can he buy enough time for iBoy to get here?
Yes, Stride Breaker. What are RA saying? You're going to go mega, don't do it, probably is in the comms. RA, yes, they're going to give this one up. It's True Shot Barrage to fly through the rift. But a little bit too early, and OMG, their feet planted into this game, Lyric, with that hyper carry building up after what we just saw here.
Just flash Q into the ultimate as his Q cooldown up once again, able to finish it off with an auto attack. Then Blue Kayn is just so mobile, is able to just keep dashing through these walls. Like you said, Leyan was able to get on top of him. Looks like he just threw a spear point blank and then finished him off with the dash damage available. Wuming absorbs the spear. And if you look at your mini-map, I think what's critical is that Cube is TPing in, but he's too far away. Because these members of the side of RA it's not enough of a front line, right? They're locked into this little Krug pit, so they're just completely surrounded by OMG's comp.
Those AoE ultimates pay the most dividends when it's in that small choke as well, right? Like, I mean, we saw there's so much disruption.
That's the smallest choke possible, right?
Yes.
You are literally in the pit where the Krugs are sitting. There can't be a smaller choke on the map.
No, it's literally like going down an alleyway in London. As I've heard, they're pretty small. I'm just using that from experience. I'm sure Munchables could help me out there, but...
what do you mean using it from experience? If you haven't been there, you are not using it from experience.
Hey, I've gone on Google Maps, man. That's close enough to an experience.
I know what you're saying. You're admitting Australia's close enough to being London. I get it.
Yeah, no. Australia's actually quite... I think Melbourne's kind of like that. As Cube actually might be caught out again. Tries to bring Aki over the wall. Gnar was almost up and available, but I do like that Aki now is being pretty impactful in the game as that blast cone was a bit precarious from Wuming. Luckily, Aki doesn't get caught.
Now OMG are, because of the Baron buff, they have Prio in the lanes. They're able to get their vision control set down. They're going to be on the objective first, so it's going to be about RA having to play retake, which is going to be much harder for their composition. You just have Eric and Aki actually sit inside of the Dragon Pit with the other three members funneled around. New doesn't care if he's taking a spear to the face. Wuming doesn't care if he takes a spear. And this is how OMG can actually solidly get an advantage in this game and start pushing for a surprising win.
when you have the Ocean Soul as a possibility against the poke composition as well, Lyric. You and I have talked about this quite a lot. Dealing with that is going to feel so great. RA got their cube, who's about to go into the Mega Gnar. He can whack him against the wall. Cold stuns him up first, so Decimating Smash, Magnet Storm. He whacks him away instead because RA weren't in position. And OMG now suddenly, they take away the Mega Gnar. They push up mid-turret for a completion. They've got 20 seconds till the Dragon. That could lead them towards this very viable condition as well.
And we're seeing most of the members of OMG stay around on the map. They weren't able to get too much deep vision into RA's jungle, as we can see now. RA were able to get a lot of it back, having some control wards down. And some members of RA are actually already on Dragon Pit. OMG are just funneling through mid lane. I don't think OMG really need to look to push midway first. They can just get into River and just try to make that formation that we talked about earlier with bringing RA into them.
But still, they're going to do... I mean, they're actually just going to go mid instead, and that means Dragon positions there. Hung actually setting up for the engage. He blocks away the ulti from New as well. That was clutch as FoFo pokes from the backside. Cube doing his job now going into Mega. The Blast Cone used, and RA's zone control was immaculate to pick up the now Soul point.
Like you said, Sion ult was blocked. We also saw FoFo deal a tremendous amount of damage onto Eric, who is low. He was forced to burn his heal, but FoFo did have to burn a flash in the process. But now RA are the team that's on Soul Point. The fact that you threw Baron earlier, it's meaning less and less. It still did get OMG within striking distance of gold, right? Where they're not even 1k gold down, so I don't want to diminish that takeaway by them, but we're at do or die now, I'm sorry, for both sides.
It really feels like, you know, that next play in front of the Dragon, if we get the Soul, if we get that RA poke that we kind of just saw as well coming out, that for OMG, position becomes precarious once again. I also want to point out that, you know, while we see that Soul point up, we have 4 minutes to ponder what's going to happen next. We got 2 minutes, rather, because the Baron will be up then as well. And I also want to mention that, you know, we're hitting these 3-item territories in this game. We've got our 80 carries with 3.5 for someone like Eric as well. Also, iBoy actually has a chainmail vest in his inventory.
Yeah, I'm wondering where he's going to go with that one. Because we were talking about this the other day, me and Penguin, when we had the Force of Nature Samira coming out from Puff about, you know, situations when 80 carries do index in towards tank items. But, you know, you have a lot of damage coming out from the side of RA. iBoy is not the sole damage threat, and OMG's comp isn't very bursty. It does have burst in it, right? You have the Kayn, you have the Galio, but you have DPS as well. You have the Tristana, who's going to do well in extended skirmishes. So, yeah, I want to see where iBoy goes with the rest of his build.
Because, of course, as we've seen, Aki has been the one targeting iBoy, so it could be a response to him, you know, just getting targeted by this Assassin Kayn and going for the GA. Of course, we'll see when it gets completed as his 4th item here. I also noticed the QSS there from Eric, so adding a bit of safety to his kit with the Sleepy Trouble Bubble, with the Gnar against the wall, you know, Alistar as well, if he gets that trample stun. So I do like the itemization here, at least for Eric's side. What else interests you on the board? Because everything else is pretty standard. I think we're seeing some different champion builds, but overall, everything really makes sense here.
I mean, Hysterics, you just said we're seeing things that are standard, but also seeing very interesting builds. Unless you're saying things that are standard are interesting. I
sat on the fence.
You did? Well, that was a very fence-sitter question.
I was scared.
I think standard's a good way of putting it, right? We're seeing very solid builds coming out. The only thing that's a bit different is typically you do still see that the Ezreal go towards the Mirror Mana and, again, have a bit of more of a scaling component towards him. iBoy didn't do that this time around, which does surprise me for the fact that he had a very slow-paced early game. No attention was paid towards the bottom lane. Instead, wanted to get towards a faster point of dealing damage and opting into the Duskblade second straight away. But I think everything else, you're right. It's pretty standard. We're still waiting to see where iBoy goes with the rest of his build. But besides that, everything is straightforward.
For now, at the very least. But what's not straightforward is the game pace, because New gets hit with the Trouble Bubble and Poke's starting to fly through, but we're at the point where New's hardly taken any damage. Having said that, though, Leyan Spear still does a bit of a number. OMG grouping around the Baron after clearing vision, but this is kind of the beauty of the poke comp, right? Being here to funnel them in as well. Poking away OMG. Cold not tanky enough, so if he takes a couple of spears, he will be forced out.
And the Baron dance is in full force, like you're saying, but Dragon's gonna come up in a minute. I don't expect either team to just outright start the Baron. I feel like we're gonna wait as...
Oh, wow, that was a quick objective change onto iBoy, but Cube's there waiting. Spear dodged away from. Another new ultimate, we'll call that one, as Eric's actually frontlining for the time being. He's too far forward, and Cube's about to go into the Mega Gnar. Buster Shot saves his life, though. Eric's so lucky with his mispositioning error.
And now he's just gonna hit some Raptors, maybe walk over to Wolves. Doesn't look like they're up, sadly, actually. And he's gonna be at full HP once again. Did have to blow a heal, though.
Heal could be big in the later game fights as well. Still has a QSS as nothing popped to pull that out. New had a very fun moment as it is 30 seconds until that Ocean Soul for RA that's going to be spawning. Teleport being burned by Cube. It feels like he is trying to get in position to stack up the Mega Gnar bar and be the impact to bring them into that soul itself.
And I mean, this would be a perfect position for him to find a Gnar ultimate, right? They were tunneled right into that choke, but instead he's just getting chunked out extremely low. None of the members of RA were in position to throw out poke until now. New already brought down to 60% HP, so we're keeping our eye on the Sleepy Trouble Bubble.
Eric was close to taking it. Remember, QSS still in the inventory. Dragon has spawned, though, and OMG are here first. Frontlining is New to take the poke, but someone needs to get in there. Leyan over the wall for the steal. No. Secured by Arky at the end of the day, but the fight breaks out as Cube ults into the wall. Wuming coming in for the counter engage, but it's a three-man wombo from Cold into the backline. Will it matter as Arky gets in there quite quick? A mobile assassin jungler now threatening FoFo while the rest of RA have to peel their way out. Eric and Colt are dead, though, and it's only 3 versus 4 as OMG now actually in a worse off position. Stridebreaker used to close the gap, but Wuming now taking the poke. A good shield to Duran, but Hung comes back in. Golden for the time being, but Wuming comes on out to get bursted down. It's an absolute massacre for both on teams. It's explosive, it's bloody, but RA will take down 4 with them.
And the most critical thing was the fact that RA were able to burst out Eric almost immediately. We saw Cube was the one who was able to pick up that kill after he found that really nice Gnar ultimate. And sure, OMG are the ones who get the dragon, but RA, keeping steady with their gold lead, now will get this Baron. You need to remember that this is a poke comp. This is a comp that loves to siege. They will do fantastic things with this Baron.
And Baron's just going to help out, get through that front line, get through the defensive measures of OMG as well. That was by far the epitome of this series because that fight was just so explosive. Baron's going down slowly in the meanwhile, and you know, Arky's not going to be available to try and contest. So as it goes on down, I can't actually see on the right-hand side, but I believe, is everyone up and available? No, it was actually 3 seconds till Leyan. They weren't going to wait for the Nidalee to come back alive. So 4 with the Baron buff and a gold lead still for RA.
I don't think it means too much because of how we're expect to see RA position, but let's take a look at this fight. We do see Cube walking forward. I'm keeping my eyes on Eric. Oh, he just flashes on top and gets the ultimate, throws out the W as well to keep him in place. And he's actually going to be fighting the Tristana off our screens.
Yep.
As the rest of the team fight kind of unfolds. We do see OMG just funneling into the choke as Cube just finished off the Tristana in the background. And to me, that's the most critical member of this fight for the side of OMG, because now for Aki, again, he's very cooldown reliant, he's very bursty. Sure, maybe he can get in and take out one member like the Nidalee or the Zoe, but then the other member's going to be able to collapse, as we see here.
And you know, the crazy thing is that Eric actually died with his flash up and available as well, right? Getting soloed out by Cube.
I am sad that we didn't see how that happened. I'm sad that, you know, the team fight was very hyped, probably way more hyped than seeing a Gnar solo kill Tristana, but I'm very curious how that happened.
Because it was, as you said, one of the most critical parts of the fight. Cube soloed him out like a good 80 carry would. He's a 3.5 item Gnar with the Warmogs now as well, so you can see why he was able to absorb a lot of the damage that came through. But as we're back into live, RA now with the Baron pushing down mid. We'll see how much damage New can absorb as RA actually grouping up his fight.
I think especially for the Cube and Eric point, I mean, also as the Randuins, right? You reduce 10% AD and 20% critical strike, which against Tristana and her build is, you know, massive.
Yeah, excuse me, I was actually quoting News item build. I was looking on the wrong side of the rift, so thank you for correcting me there. Randuin's a big point to bring up. Hysterics shield too. I like that lyric because Cube has just been a great front line for OMG, for RA as well. As Baron will get the inner turret in the mid lane, so RA start their push off, but seem to be backing away with a minute remaining on the buff.
The good thing is that OMG are extremely tanky with the Galio, the Sion, and the Rell, so it's pretty hard for RA to walk up any further than they did. They're always at risk of an OMG engage. Not to say they can't win if OMG engage, because we've now seen numerous times that they do have the ability to do it through outplay, but it seems like they don't want to take the risk, instead wanting to spend the gold that they have in their pockets and then push back onto the map once again. But with Baron going down in 30 seconds, we don't really expect to see any more turrets go down for RA.
So how does this affect the next Dragon play? Because there's a bit more priority through mid, elongated lanes, but in comparison to other Barons we've seen in the LPL, it didn't really do that much work for RA. Is this just going to be a rinse and repeat with similar conditions for the next Dragon?
Yes. 100% Hysterics going to be rinse and repeat. The thing is, you could see RA try to transition into playing around a side lane, you know, send Cube and do a 1-4 composition, but I would really hate to see that, because then you're leaving 3 squishy members with an Alistar up against a comp that has a Sion ultimate and a Rell who can just jump on top of you. So I think for R8, it's just about answering sides, grouping up as a unit, baiting out OMG's engage and throwing out your poke.
Look for that engage bait onto New once again. His ults haven't really connected in this game.
I feel like New's been baiting himself.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe baiting the rest of OMG with him as well. Spear connects onto Wuming. Not too much damage now from the Night Harvest to Nidalee. Is there it is. The engage Magnet Storm. Cold sets it up. That's only onto the front line though, but FoFo runs into range as Aki doing the rest of the back line. Golden is he, but Leyan trying to fix the situation. The spear goes past Aki. He survives. Leyan to fix it up with a flash, but now Cube and he are only alive. Wuming with the Justice Punch, ready to roll on in. New flashes over the wall, and RA are obliterated moments before the Dragon spawns.
And this might just be the end for OMG. They can just push through. It's crazy that we saw Aki able to do that by himself. All 4 other members of OMG are just distracting the front line, and Aki is cleaning house on the carries.
Cold in the front, Aki in the back, and it's all party for OMG if they can take it to a game number 3. Against the wall now, it's 2 versus 5, and Nexus Turret going to go on down. There's not too much RA can do. With no Gnar ulti available, the hero's entrance in. Nexus laid bare. And yes, we are going to a game number 3 after OMG executes so well in front of the Nexus. They don't care. They want the kill onto Cube, who's surviving longer than expected, but not long enough so that we go to number 3.
Hysterics, I'll say it every time, the composition that is, you know, closer to the generic 5v5 run in, engage, and brawl composition is the one that seems like we'll always do better in the LPL, and it did show true here today. We saw a really... I'm not even sure if it was a good engage coming out from Cold. Like, it was an engage, as you pointed out, it was onto the front line. The thing is, we saw, I think it was FoFo who stepped forward, and it gave Aki an avenue into the back line. Q's in, instantly deletes one of the members, ults onto someone else, they are then dead, is left in a 1v1 with the third carry, and again, this blue Kayn just able to completely clean house while 4 members are fighting the other 2 for RA.
I just love watching the Kayn W line up the brush, and, you know, FoFo actually just a portal jumped into it, so he got half health immediately, and Aki had a really slow start to that game, but once he got the evolve, once he started getting interactive with these team fights as well, you know, OMG could rely on him as that backline access, while I think Cold set up the fight really nicely. It was good to see him on the Rell actually initiating the last two out of 3 fights.
He was doing his job again. This game had a lot of weird moments, a lot of questionable ultimates on both sides. I think we saw a misunderstanding of how to play out fights from both sides early on, and they were both very trigger happy in taking some of these. But at the end of the day, you know, we didn't see RA hitting a lot of their skill shots, which their composition was really relying on. Like, can you imagine in a lot of these scenarios, had Leyan hit another spear or 2, or another sleepy trouble bubble come out from FoFo that landed? The abilities didn't connect. OMG had the easier comp. They got in position, but I don't want to downplay how well that last play was from Aki. And Eric found himself in a lot of situations where even when he got poked out a little bit, he would just instantly lifesteal up right away. Yeah,
just shredded through. You know, someone like Cube as well. Like the minimal front line from RA meant nothing when Eric was in a good position as well. So I think OMG really recovered in that game, and you know, that was a game 2 I was expecting after seeing the early game that it could be a little bit messier than what we expected in game 1, right? Like RA, the mid 2v2 you talked about in the early game with Leyan and FoFo didn't really get off the ground, and the pushing back of Wuming only lasted so long.
And it was a bit sad as well because I feel like we could have seen more pressure ganks come out in mid. You at least attempt to throw out the Sleepy Trouble Bubble, hit it, land a spear. Maybe you're not going to kill Wuming. You know, he's going to shield of Duran that ability and then walk away just fine with the MR shield that he has. But you can control vision around mid. You can not allow him to move. You can start getting Prio to look towards Dragon or look towards a bot lane gank when Wuming has to go back. You can look to play for Herald early on because you have the top lane Prio. And all we saw was a counter gank come out early for Leyan. He counter ganked top. They got, I think it was a 2-for-1 if I remember correctly. And then it was like 10 minutes of just cross mapping.
Yeah. It was 10 minutes of like, you know when you cut the head off of a chicken, apparently it actually runs around the coop for about 10 minutes, with its head off. Now, I feel like you did a half hatchet job where it's still kind of on there and you don't know if the chicken's dead or not. And you're kind of in suspect for 20 minutes. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Who's the chicken in this scenario?
I feel like RA with a chicken where you're like, is the head truly off? Halfway off, halfway sliced.
Wait, but so in your scenario, RA cut their own head off?
I feel like they did. Maybe they ran into the blade. I don't know. I got into this analogy and I felt really confident until you started questioning it. So I'll leave it at that.
Hey,
yeah?
I like it a lot. It makes a lot of sense. New Sion Ultimate was what led it all. And, that's all we have to say about that game, Hysterics.
That's it. Good way to leave it apart. By analogy, left at the corner. We'll go to game 3, folks. We'll go to a break at that RA OMG.